Synergetic journal videos of my individual ongoing non-political manifesto, April 12 through April 15, 2026. The Closest Approach to Eternity and God, Part 2. Christina Herloff's Son's Anticipatory Design Science Synergetics Research Project. Instead of shunning the most accurate sound word Yom, E-O-M, because supposedly it is a threat against the major religions, various words for God, Allah, and so forth, as their belief system's most powerful divinity, as well as established political preferences, individual humans naturally can commence awareness of Yom, which to date does not feel compelled to spell God in any translation in the uppercase. The objective here specifically informs us of the closest approach humans will ever know to eternity, and Yom is zero pulsation in the vector equilibrium. The vector equilibrium happens also to be the Synergetics' model of equanimity that the ancient scribes who officially wrote what has become the supposedly end-all be-all forever to be unquestioned divine scriptures, and deities accordingly to what the ancient imagination assumed would never be questioned once the word of it grew greater in authority than the individual's own faculties of thought, the human mind and brain, printed in a book referred to as the Holy Book, Holy, of sacred text spread across the world. Every human is born with an integral mind and integral brain, without which its natural abilities would not function for any and all information gathering, remote to local, trial and error problem solving. Humans depend only on trial and error explored survival stratagems, which do not seem so exquisite during earliest childhood, when action-reactions resultant steps are not consciously developed into dichotomous reasoning before deciding the newest selection, deselecting what moments before may have seemed the better choice. Conceptual reasoning capabilities develop along every step of the way, but can be waylaid by belief system authorities whose mindsets have been programmed according to the doctrines that support the survival of the system's conceptual parameters, which are dead set forever, without any intention to evolve out of its own limitations, that treasure the past as the Holy Grail, because it does not require adjusting the a priori thought to anything other than its controlling power, which is appealing to the worshipping followers. The worshipping followers tend not to differentiate their God of choice by its accepted personality, minus its deranged psyche, its polluting perspectives, its aberrant philosophy, all of which can only be imagined anyway, as these 4 P's that go everywhere with the individual were discovered later in human histories. Imagine the relative insanity in this day and age, feeling compelled to follow a human personality because your community of peers insists he is the light of the world, the only prophet and or the final prophet. Imagine your reluctant intellect, one of the adoringly dependent followers, adding layers of agreement with the obviously reality-distorting impressions of the charismatic philosophers' supposedly unchallengeable, albeit doubtful, wisdom, fortifying many eagerly cultivated ambitions by further promoting credibility of the assumptive prophet's indoctrinating actions, his use of language, his anointing demonstrations to heal the physically impaired as the one and only Son of God. Therefore, he must be God incarnate, with such power that can turn one loaf of bread into abundant fishes, providing food to feed the gathering throngs. Obviously, metaphysical intellect's deciphering abilities detect similarities of the false premised adaptations to conceptualities of the as yet not consciously associated constant relative abundance minus the geometric topological models and the AAA NOEA and absolute accommodation network of energy articulation, which are visible characteristics in the tetrahedron, 6 vectors, 4 vertexes, 4 triangular openings, without also having to delude anyone for the sake of convincing them to play along with the popularized fallacies for any number of personalized profit-motivated reasons. Theoretically, the tetrahedron, the vector equilibrium, as well as all the prime polyvertexia and synergetics referential generalization fields of energy, every vector's mass times its velocity equals 0. Imagine no first-hand experience of these prime systems, and without your innate ability to observe the popularized prophets' actions minus the self-other delusions that can be written about as lines of text in pages of a book, with no necessity to provide scientific proof referential to physical mathematical geometries, topological characteristics, conceptual models from nature's coordinate systems, self-regenerating energy. Imagine the entire community of humans held in subservience to the cultivated will of the group mentality out of fear of harm by the ruling authority, having to withhold any clarifying objection, thereby furthering the belief system's establishment of their God incarnate, and out of fear for self and one's family joining the deception, having to feign acceptance of that one's personality, philosophy, perspective, and psyche as the divine savior and forgiver of all sins. Before saying as much, you would at least know of the 4 P's that were not known way back then. Whether it dates to 375 AD, which is said to have been the birth date of Jesus Christ, or as the Prophet Muhammad's birthday in Mecca 570 CE and death in Medina 632 CE as the final prophet of Islam, whose followers apparently emulated the Christianity indoctrinating format, rites, and rituals to some distinguishing performance. CE refers to the year starting from year 1 in the Gregorian calendar, a medieval calendar. CE is equivalent to AD, which stands for Anno Domini in the Gregorian and Julian calendar, all of which can be considered irrelevant to the calendars of the recent number of centuries and generalized conceptioning sense. The only reason to cling to ancient beliefs is to avoid obsoleting the feigned devoted insistence that humans must carry into each succeeding generation what continues to be contrived by the copycat mindsets from the Middle Ages, who by comparison were relatively ignorant, not knowing a fraction of what our species, humans of a mind, have since learned technologically. The scientific knowledge we are apprised of now greatly surpasses what the ancient mentality could not have foreseen, but may have attempted to imagine to impress each other as a superficial forecasting prediction that in truth holds no degree of dependable accuracy in the interim or final analysis. So why in the universe must our individual intelligent curiosities be negatively labeled by indoctrinated mentalities who seem prone to accept anything that can be generated from and for the group mentality without realizing such inculcating intentions in truth harms what always will be the integral, inviolable integrity of the individual that is designed in principle to be experienced as an inherent right. The inherent right of the inviolable integrity of the individual is integrally designed in principle to conceptually communicate. It is conceptual when the individual thinks about universe, taking something out of it in thought. Thoughts are systemic of systems. A thought is taken out of universe so we can accurately say that thoughts belong to universe while the inherently inviolable integrity belongs to the individual. To be continued in part 3. Thank you. Gratefully, faithfully, eternally, Christina Herlufsen. Contact herlufsencristina@gmail.com.